This is a custom rod rack for a float tube that I'm just finishing off for a customer, so I thought it'd be a good way to demonstrate what I'm doing. This particular configuration that he wanted is 2 rod holders, a Lowrance Reveal Hook 5 fish finder and transducer mount, and 2 camera holders and the coffee cup holder. This is the Lowrance finder mount. This is the factory base, and what I did is I designed and 3D printed a mount that goes on a pipe. These are glued together with an adhesive and goes into a socket held on the horizontal pipe on the tube. You can rotate this way by keeping this just sort of snug, and then with the Lowrance in the back you can rotate it up and down to get it where you want it. All the components on this can be repositioned, so you can move this front or back depending on space that you have. And you can make the main tube longer if you want to get more room on it. I think a maxed out configuration would be this one plus maybe one more rod holder for 3 rods. I also wanted a coffee mug holder, and so we've got one very handy. By the way, this particular guy is left-handed, so this was set up to go on the right side. The components that allow this thing to be configured on either the left side or the right side of your float tube. The rod holders pretty much all work the same way. There's different options on the rod holders, but they're set up the same way. There's one clamp that goes on the main horizontal pipe, and it's always vertical, and it's kind of locked in place, and it doesn't have a swivel mount. You just tighten it down, and it goes vertical. It holds a short vertical pipe, and what goes on there is a rod holder. And the rod holder has a detent pivot joint, so that when you clamp it down, it's really solid. It's not going anywhere. I run this tightened so it's snug, but not clamped down all the way, so that I can swing the rod around. So if I want to put it out sideways for trolling, or maybe bring it back up here and out of the way back here to stow it, it's all real easy to do. I also leave there are 2 different rod holder styles and options within that. There's one that's on a 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe. That inside diameter is about 1.3 inches. It'll take most any light, medium tackle rod. If it has a butt cap, you have to watch out that the butt cap goes in that diameter. A lot of butt caps are bigger than that. It's slotted for a fly rod, but a spinning rod or a bait caster works perfectly fine. With the reel would end up sitting up here instead of sliding on in. The other style is 1.5 inch PVC pipe. This customer is not a fly fisherman, so he wanted it unslotted. It's marginally stronger, but I think the slotted pipes are perfectly strong as well. I made it just a little bit longer because he fished heavier tackle with longer butts on it. These are compatible. They have exactly the same fitting here, and so they screw onto the rod holder base in the same way. So here I'm showing a fly rod in one of the 1 1/4 inch slotted holders, and it's very convenient. Drops right in and holds the thing pretty securely. I leave these, as I said, snug so that I can also rotate the reel around depending on which orientation I have the holder itself. Sometimes I want the reel in a different position. And here we go with a spinning reel, and it goes in. It doesn't actually drop into the slot, it stays above it. The front rod position is usually where more stuff gets loaded on. In this case, we have this is a camera holder, and then there's a rod holder, and this one has the 1.5 inch tube in it. I should mention the 1.5 inch tube can also be slotted for a fly rod, and that would make it a truly universal holder that could hold anything you threw at it. This is the transducer holder. It sits at the very nose, and it's pivoted. So when you're landing the boat, you can just unloosen that and swing this up out of the way so that it's not in the water. And then you can also, of course, tilt it back. This is a Lowrance split shot transducer. I think a triple shot would also fit on this same fitting, or I could make a custom one for you. So this goes back down here. The cable for the transducer is long, and I hate long cables being in the way. So the transducer cable actually goes into this entry here on the tube. There's a fitting on the end of the tube that's notched. This works like a bicycle handlebar fitting. You unscrew this, and push on the screw. That pops it loose, and this would slide out. And so what we have is fingers and a wedge. And so when you tighten this screw here, it pulls that in and clamps this in place. So I'll show you the cable here. So the cable, I just doubled back and forth on itself and tied it with twist ties, and it fits inside this pipe, and that was by design. Okay, so you got to fold it up to so shorter than the overall length, and leave yourself a little bit of slack here. Then you take your end cap fitting and back the screw. You'll see there's two slots and two wide sections of grooves here, and you want to make sure this all lines up. And so you just push one of the cables in on one side, push the other cable into the grooves on the other side, keep your finger on the screw, slide it in, and then you tighten this down a little bit. Doesn't have to be much because there's no pressure on it. Okay, that's it. Don't over tighten it because you could break things, but just enough that it's snugly in place. There's another cap just like that at the other end that doesn't have the notches. So that keeps the cable out of the way, and then it's used with zip ties along the way to get it up to the fish finder. This is the front camera holder. It's on the same sort of swivel as the rod holders are. So there's a knob here, which if you unloosen it, well, let me get this thing down where it would be when you're fishing. So you can adjust the angle of the rod going out to the camera. And then this one is clamped in place instead of with screws with a knob so that it's easy to pull it out. And now you can use this like a selfie stick, or you can shove it underwater and take an underwater shot and then put it right back into the holder. The tube is a little over 2 feet long, and it's actually capped at one end so that it's watertight, so that if you dropped it in the water, the whole thing with a camera on it actually will float. This is the ball swivel and the GoPro mount at the end of the camera tubes. It's a 2-ball swivel, and then I make a GoPro adapter with a bubble level so that you can get things level to the horizon, and it comes with a GoPro screw. So it's missing the actual GoPro case and the GoPro camera itself. This is a 1/4 20 threaded nut in here, so this alone would go on any tripod, so you could use this separately. This is a 1/4 20 threaded stud, so anything you can bolt into this hole, like a ram mount, for instance, a ball mount, anything on a 1/4 inch 20 thread would go into that hole. So the final thing I want to demonstrate here are the bungee cords and how they work. They're on the curved descenders. These wrap around the tube. These curved descenders, by the way, are hinged, so you can take them off and put them back on to relocate them or flip them around. There's 2 screws here. These can be tightened quite tight, and they need to be, because that keeps the whole rig from rotating on you. And with rods and so forth, there can be a lot of force on this thing trying to rotate it. So then these curve around the tube. At the bottom, there are 2 bungee cords that clip onto D-rings at the bottom of your float tube. They're finger tight. You unloosen it, and what you get is a bungee cord with a clip on one end that go onto a D-ring underneath, and then another one of these same clips, but I cut the hook off, and this forms a stop on the inside. So this gets pulled up against that, and that sets the length for tension. So you would twist this open, separate it, and then adjust this bungee cord inside of this holder, push the collar back on, and then this is a little longer than it needs to be. I left surplus just in case. And so that just goes back up in here once you've got the tension changed. And you get the thread started and screw it back together. This is standard 1/4 inch bungee cord. This or 6mm bungee cord will work fine. If you ever need to replace it, you can buy it at Home Depot or off of eBay or wherever. But 6mm or 1/4 inch bungee cord. So that's the entire system. As I said, this one is set up for 2 rods. Actually, that back rod in this video, I'm showing it as the 1 1/4 inch tube. The customer ordered a 1 1/2 inch tube, so as soon as I'm done here, I'll put that on, and then he'll be picking this up hopefully within a couple of days. He wanted the Lowrance fish finder, and the split shot transducer. So he actually, because I hadn't done that before, he ordered those and had them drop shipped straight to me and set it to him so that I could use it to get dimensions to make custom parts for him. So if you want a custom fish finder setup that I don't make, the charge for all the design time is only $15 extra added on. On my own tube, I run a Garmin Striker 4, and I have the mount for it and its transducer and all variations of it, of the Striker 4. So that's the 4CV, the plus 4CV, the straight Striker 4, and so forth. So I have two fish finders available in the inventory right now, and if you have a custom one, as I say, or a different one, I'd be happy to design one for you. And thanks for watching the video.